Is Susan here?
Good morning.
Sue Orton's here.
Okay. Susan Schaefer's is not. So I'm gonna do the roll call. Let me get my list of names here. Carol Rodriguez,
Here.
Elizabeth Gilles-Parus,
Here.
Lisa Hotley,
Here.
Lisa Knoll,
Here.
Sharon Mitchell. Is Cookie here? Okay. Mike Nickel,
Right here.
Wilma Schmitz, Dan Rosenthal here, Lillian Eunice, Wayne Flesh. I don't know if we have how many do we need for a quorum?
Would be a simple majority, Dan. So I think, do you have, how many members are there currently on the board?
So we have 6 people here and we have
We have a quorum.
10. Yes, we have a quorum. Did I miss anybody?
It looks like there is a call-in user. Do we know who the call-in user is?
Can they get off mute? Who's the call-in user? I don't know. Do we know how to turn off mute?
I believe they have to do that themselves, but maybe IT knows
Okay.
otherwise.
Well, we have a quorum. So let's see. Approval, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September the 5th? I'm sorry, no, from October what was the date of that meeting?
Call-in user said they're unable to unmute.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the October 3rd meeting minutes?
So moved.
Do we
Second.
have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And Lillian is here? Okay,
Susan too.
good. And Susan, great.
And Wilma.
Old business. So I apologize for missing the October meeting. It was a Jewish holiday. And I really wanted to participate in the presentation by Paul Weatherford because I've been participating in that steering committee. And I hear it was good, but can anyone give a short summary of that meeting? I know it's probably difficult to do because it was pretty inclusive. Would anybody like to share any of their thoughts on that presentation? For STLCO 2050.
I can just share that I think it was a really good presentation, but I really was surprised that so much had been accomplished and looked into and decided without anyone there was just no, it didn't seem as if there was a great deal of public participation.
The
Am I wrong
public
on that?
participation is starting now. So I think starting this week. So there will be a series of public meetings. I think they wanted to really get their ducks in a row before they did that. Any thoughts on how it had an impact on us, on older adults?
I think the commissioners brought up a lot of really good points of discussion. I know Liz brought up several, including engagement of first responders, I believe, the fire departments and particularly the fire departments, in terms of both transportation issues and safety issues and being first responders. What other, I think a number of good points were brought up, but I'm not recalling all of them without referencing notes. Wilma did a great job of moving us along and giving everyone the opportunity to chime in.
Okay, I just got an email from Cookie. I think Susan, you copied it. She's probably on the phone with her now to get the password. As a participant in the steering committee, I can tell you that it's a really diverse group of people from varying, from leadership in, not-for-profits, in people with expertise in public policy, people from the Federal Reserve, people from bi-state, business people, community leaders, and they have us attack different aspects of the strategic plan every month that we meet. The last one was dealing with land use, where we broke up into small groups and tried to kind of do an inventory of what we thought the existing land uses in the county were, and then did an overlay of what we thought the land uses could be or how they could be improved. And it was a really interesting exercise, and it really focused on affordable housing and mixed use. So you saw a lot of recommendations to grow mixed use development along major thoroughfares. And then along with that, so that's, retail on the first floor and housing above in more zones that could accommodate more higher density. And then that led to a lengthy discussion about how public transportation needed to improve along with that. So as you create more density along public thoroughfares, you also create more opportunities for slow traffic. And so there was a lot of discussion about public transportation along those routes. So these are very long-term, and some of the conversations were fairly pie in the sky, but that's how you get to 2050.
Dan, when you're talking
Yes.
about transportation, one of the things that I know has been bandied around was that it's much cheaper and easier to use electric buses than fixed rail. So did that come up as in the discussion, or how did that go for public transport?
Public transportation of various kind of modes were discussed. I can't remember if specifically electric buses were discussed, but as an example, a lot of people said, we're seeing a lot of growth in mixed use and high density multifamily along the Manchester corridor as you head west. And then there were many comments about how long it takes to get home if you live near the Manchester corridor. And so the logical, next step would be to think about improving that thoroughfare, and, how do you decrease, single occupant cars taking up the roadway. Well, one way of doing it is to try to support public transportation that moves people in a more efficient way. Could Metrolink be expanded out in that direction? Buses were discussed in general, but not electric buses in particular. Could you have a dedicated lane for bus traffic like you would see in Amsterdam? That was discussed.
Dan, one question I had asked was what happened to the walking and biking plan that the county had done several years ago? Because I had sat on that advisory board, and he said that some of it was incorporated. My concerns were number one, that they never followed up with anybody that sat on that committee. So a lot of us gave I think 6, 9 months of meetings, and then we never heard back. The whole project just seemed to be dormant. And so I said, if you were going to reach out again, which is what he said is the next stage of this strategic planning, that if you're going to engage people, you're going to have to follow up with them and let them know, or else we're going to have this reputation for engagement with no action and no communication. So that was
That's a really important point. And I can share some of the dates for some of these public sessions that are coming up. Am I allowed to do that? So can I send an email with just the dates of the public listening sessions? Okay,
Dan, I think it's really important that we make a concerted effort to try and attend those as commissioners, because, you know, our role is to make sure that older adults are being appropriately addressed and represented in this plan for the future. So
really good point.
if we could kind of make an effort to be present.
There are two public meetings next week that I see on my calendar. One is Wednesday, November the 13th at 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Greensfelder Recreation Complex, which I believe is in
Queenie Park.
So that would be from 4:30 to 7:30 on Wednesday next week. And another one on, let's see, Pavilion at Limay, also from 4:30 to 7:30 on Thursday, November the 14th. Then there is another one on November the 16th at the Florissant Municipal Court. Those are the three dates.
Can I ask that, one of us make a commitment to being there, to being at one of those sessions, Dan? At least?
Yes, I will definitely be at the Greensfelder one.
Okay. No, I'm going to look at my calendar and we either make sure I'm either on the 14th or the 16th.
I think they've been promoting these open houses. I just looked on Facebook. It looks like they're promoting Saturday, November 16th one, and I think there's a list of them. So at least they're getting the word out. I know I'd seen this before. November, yeah. So they've got them all listed here on Facebook. So I'm hoping that they'll get. I don't see a lot of action on their page on a regular basis, but at least they're getting the word out formally.
Mhm.
I have to say, I cannot go on the 14th, so I'll make a commitment to go on the 16th. What time is it on the 16th, Dan?
I think all three of them are from 4:30 to 7:30. I can't access the one in Florissant, so I don't know if it's the same time. I know that the two during the week are 4:30 to 7:30. Since that's Saturday, it might be a different time.
Yeah.
Florissant is 10 to 1 on November 16th.
They 10 to 1.
Mhm.
And it was
Okay.
at Florissant Community Center?
Municipal Court Building. Let's see,
You
Yes.
said that's
Municipal
November the 16th?
November the 16th, yes.
No,
Looks it's on,
November the 16th is in Florissant, yes.
Okay, municipal court. I'll try to get there.
You'll still
Yes.
send all of this out, Dan, right?
I will, yes.
Okay.
I will be at the Florissant site. Good morning, everybody from Firestone.
Welcome.
I will be I'll do my best to be at Queenie.
Excellent. Yeah, I think this is really important, and to stress exactly what Lisa Hotley said, which is, these exercises are useless unless there's follow-up. So I think we should voice that. Anything else about Paul Weatherford's presentation? Did you find it useful in any way?
very helpful.
Very.
The next point is the Senior Fund Initiative. I will ask Jamie if she has any updates on that, and I'll also give a little update of my own.
Sure. Well, I just wanted to let you know that you might have already read this, but one of the grants that the Senior Levy Board Association had in the last several years from Missouri Foundation for Health was to assist other counties in passing a senior levy fund. And on Tuesday, Jackson County became the 56th county in Missouri to pass a senior levy fund. They will be bringing in I think it was at a little under 58% approval rate. So they will be bringing in $8 million a year for that county. So one of the lessons learned is that they had very little campaign funding, but they had the approval of their county executive, Frank White, and their county council to put it on the ballot. So they didn't have to do any petition signing campaign. And so anyway, just wanted to let you know that sometimes if you just go forward, you never know what you're going to get. They didn't even do polling. They had no money for polling.
Wow.
So they kind of just went in blindfolded almost. But anyway, so we're very happy about that. I know that Mirror Lake Mission Fund is continuing to provide the leadership in moving this process forward. They are busy putting together an executive committee, a steering committee, and also they have got confirmation from Lutheran Senior Services to be the fiscal agent moving forward for the grant. And Mirror Lake has already approved $40,000 to Lutheran for the education campaign. So the next step is Claire Hundell will be reaching out to other foundations, as she did last time, including Missouri Foundation for Health, to see if there can be some additional funding for the education campaign. She is working on a job description for the program manager for this position, and we're hoping we can get somebody very good that has maybe some more grassroots movement experience that can get people engaged and so forth. And then there's already been a committee that started working on ideas for raising funds for the campaign that has met, and just starting to identify people that have volunteered for different committees to try to start finding leadership to kind of run those committees. So that is what I know. I will tell you that I met this week with a woman from Sam Page's office who was interested, thought that there was a senior levy fund in St. Louis County, and was able to tell her that there wasn't. She's new. She thought that it was something both the city and the county had. And she just had suggested that if a committee is interested in moving forward with getting Dr. Page on board, that we need really data to be able to show him what it is, what the needs are for older adults in St. Louis County. And I said, well, luckily, Lisa Knoll and her work with the state on the master plan on aging, that there's been some oversampling, and she will be coming out. Lisa, you'll be presenting some new data on the needs. Is that correct, or did I misspeak?
Oh, that's exactly right. So, and if I maybe just give a quick update on that, because it was in my notes to do that later maybe, but so we did get word from the contractor that they're compiling the data, and we have draft, and that's for the whole state, county by county. However, we did pay for a deeper dive into St. Louis County to get zip code data, and that That will be forthcoming, but that's kind of on the second tier of reporting out. So we should have that by January, I think. So we'll have much more detail to share then.
Okay, great.
Excellent.
Perfect. That's what I was curious is the timing. So that's perfect. Okay, great. Because that's, she had just said that, you know, when you plan to approach Dr. Page, or whoever plans to approach Dr. Page in this process, whether that's whether that's the steering committee or the executive committee, she had suggested that you really come with what are the needs in St. Louis County for older adults? Where are the holes? Where is the waiting list? What are the top issues? So that is what I have.
Thank you,
Jamie,
Jamie.
could I ask
Jamie,
could I ask
yeah.
a question? I'm curious, are there some of these other communities the cities that have the senior fund? I'm a little concerned that the property tax freeze is going to signal to voters that we've done enough. And so I was just curious, now we're saying, hey, we're going to raise, property taxes for everybody else, but we're freezing seniors. Do you see that? Has that been addressed already in terms of timing?
So great question. That is actually something that MCOA and Missouri Budget Project are working on collaboratively, the Missouri Council on Aging, to put together some graphics to explain how the property tax freeze is, what it is, because people are very confused. They think that they're either not going to pay property taxes or that it's a complete freeze and it will never go up, which is incorrect. The portion of their property tax that is frozen is the amount that is paid to the county itself. But if a school passes a bond issue or a fire department, those increases are not part of that freeze. And so that's something that they're working on, some picture graphics information to put into a presentation when out educating people about a senior levy fund.
Okay, so Jamie, you, in your presentation to the steering committee for the senior tax levy, you had some really good graphics that show what portions of the city tax revenues are frozen, what portions are not. And so that led me to question what the case was with the ordinance in the county. So I think Carol sent me or forwarded some information on that she had on it, and then I took that information and I wrote an email to Sam Page and to Lisa Clancy and her advisor, and I got a response. So I'm going to just quickly state what I asked and then give you their response. As we learn more about the recent rollout of the senior property tax freeze, more questions arise. Here's a clipping from a recent article that points out a nuance I was not aware of. Quote, some counties have excluded property tax revenue streams designated for specific purposes, such as senior services or schools, from the freeze. In these counties, older adults would see property tax amounts for taxing jurisdictions other than the county continue to rise.
Correct.
And so I said, I recently learned that when the city passed the tax freeze, they excluded many revenue streams from the freeze, such as schools, fire districts, which leads me to the following question. What is included and what is excluded from the property tax freeze in the county? And the response I got from Lisa Clancy's office, Craig Zumsteg's response, unlike what the city of St. Louis did, the county did not carve out a lot of exclusions. The only parts that were excluded were for the state blind pension fund and for bond indebtedness. The county's tax freeze does apply to schools, the special school district, libraries, the zoo, fire departments, ambulance districts, and others. I've attached the final version of the bill that was passed in case you want to take a look. Those two exclusions are listed as blah, blah, blah section, whatever. So it's different. And so I don't know what the political impact of that difference will be. But to Lisa's point, we've frozen a lot and now we're asking for more money. And, that could lead us to, kind of a communications challenge, I'd say.
Yeah, so Dan, my understanding from Amy Bloom from the Missouri Budget Project is she had the state statute looked at by a legal consultant and said that probably counties, the way that the legal consultant looked at it is the state, the county only has the authority over the taxing portion of their bill that comes to the county. They do not have authority over the other taxing districts. However, someone's going to have to probably take someone to court in order to get that cleared up. That is one concern. I think for the communication piece for the senior levy fund is to, really make sure that people understand that it's, how that tax freeze is going to impact them or not impact them, and the benefits that they could potentially receive from a senior levy fund, and just try to keep it as clear as possible. I will tell you that it also really is important when looking at, I think what we learned from Jackson County is people went to the polls and people realize that, they support it with no funding for the education campaign. It was just simply social media that was done. And yet in Jackson County, they have been dealing with a huge issue with property taxes being extremely high. And that's why we were really surprised that it actually passed in Jackson County, because the assessment values in Jackson County have almost, have gone up so significantly high that people were in line contesting their property taxes. And this has just been recent in the last few years. So if it passed, even in a county that's been having a lot of bad press about property taxes, I think the lesson learned is it doesn't hurt to just put it out there and see what voters think.
Yeah.
But Jamie, what do you think that it's just that the needs of older adults as far as cost and expense is so obvious to a lot of voters that's why the tax dedicated to helping that population was pretty easy to sell? Is that possibly the reason?
It could be. I mean, I'm not an expert at, post-election results, but I guess, from my limited experience, again, it never hurts to be able to really, we know that who goes to the polls but older people, right? It does, making sure that people are aware of how these services, that that's local control of these services that are appointed by a 7-member board, what some of the good work that's been done in communities around the state as a result of this. I mean, to me, it's just making sure that people understand exactly what it is that this tax would go for is key, and just letting people make a decision.
Jamie, in some of your other presentations, you really made some excellent points about how, how it was done in 2016 and how we're doing it differently now. And one of the big differences is it's a focus on just St. Louis County. So the resources to get out the information are just dedicated to the county and not spread out. And with the updated survey that, you helped present to us a couple months ago, it seems like there is support in areas where we wouldn't have expected support, in some areas that are very tax averse, that are supportive of this. So I don't know. It's interesting dynamics.
It truly is.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the senior fund initiative?
Oh, Carol.
Well, I just, and Jamie, I think I've posed this before, but since this will potentially be on the ballot in 2026, it will be after the tax freeze for older adults has already gone into effect in St. Louis County, which currently includes the tax on all the other items on your tax bill, such as your school district, fire district, et cetera, et cetera. So if all of that is frozen and then we add a senior tax onto that, would that fall under the jurisdiction of seniors would not, I mean, if my taxes were frozen at a certain level, could you add a tax on top of that, or would that be excluded
Yeah,
from
I know.
taxable income, which would lower the amount that St. Louis County was getting if it's not getting any from people over the age of 62?
Yeah, my understanding again from the legal consultant was that it would be added to their bill so that it's not frozen at what it was. Any new tax that is passed would be added to their bill. So they would still be supporting their own, needs. So, that kind of takes care of that argument that, well, why should older adults' tax bills were frozen and now the rest of us should have to pay more for them. So that should address that issue.
Well, somebody could make that argument right now until it goes to court and until somebody actually pushes for what you said could be pushed for, because the way it's written in the ordinance is pretty basic.
Do you know, Dan, if it was written as the state had it in the state statute?
Oh, gosh, I have it's like a 4-page ordinance, and I can't find, and they did reference, they cited a specific, section, but I didn't go back and read it, about eligible senior taxpayers. I'll have to go back and look at it. I can also forward this to everyone.
Can you get clarification? So who did you get the clarification from, Dan, that this was, that school districts were part of the freeze as well as other special taxing district?
I'm going to find that it was Craig Zumsteg from Lisa Clancy's office who did the research for me.
Okay.
And I believe he seek, I think, legal advice from someone with the county.
Yes.
His interpretation was my interpretation of what he said was it's going to vary county by county. So the city has really chosen to address it differently than St. Louis County has at this point chosen to address it.
So he referenced 502.750 Section A, which reads, applicable taxing jurisdictions shall mean all taxing districts levying ad valorem taxes in St. Louis County, provided, however, that nothing in this section through Section 502.765 SLCRO shall relieve the taxpayer of the obligation to pay the tax liability of the state blind pension fund or dedicated ad valorem taxes levied for the payment of bonded indebtedness. That's it. So, I mean, their interpretation was that nothing else is excluded.
I'm wondering if school districts will be interested in challenging that.
You would think anybody who's getting a decrease in their revenue source might want to do that. But
which might
the way
make
that
the timing of that could roll out where that first challenge, if this is 2025 when this takes effect, the timing of that, if school districts are challenging and saying, we're robbing children, that's my concern is how much can be controlled in terms of a rollout. If school districts don't challenge before that first round where they actually see, where they have some data to say, this is the number, this many people applied, we're losing this many dollars, that could very well be 2026 when we actually see that. So our timing, I think, is going to be really critical here.
I see Cookie has her hand up.
And Sharon.
You're on mute.
Good morning. I had a problem getting in and I messed up, but I got in and thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
May I ask, I got, I think 2 questions and they may be the same. First of all, could this senior tax freeze at any time just be reversed and they do something else? They change it?
I mean, you could always, I guess, have another vote by the council, I would suspect, to rescind whatever the ordinance is, or, I mean, we have an attorney at the table. You want to weigh in at this?
I'm not well versed in it, but I believe that ordinances could be changed by the council. So yeah, I believe that would be the appropriate thing for this, as it was not a ballot initiative. It was something that the council put in that they could also take it away.
I mean,
And-
it's
In doing so, if they do, because it seemed like this, anyway, this is Cookie 4th District. I'm just asking because it seems that it affects more of the 4th District. I may because it just seems like the increase, just as if, it's going to end, you got up until 2025 of June. Well, that also is the same time that the assessment for the taxes are change or are due. Can they appeal? What can happen? I mean, I'm one of the seniors. I don't want to take anything from the school district, the fire department. I just think that there are other avenues that could also help the seniors that we can look at. Like this new marijuana stuff. I mean, where's that money going? At one time, the lottery was covering a lot of stuff. I don't know if that's still in effect. Because it is a burden to the seniors or to anyone really on fixed income.
so, Susan, Sue, do you have an answer to that? I can't hear you. Can anyone hear?
I did not hear. I muted because my little dog
Yeah.
started acting up. But I did not hear her.
Yeah, I'm not hearing her either. You're not muted, so I don't know what's going on. You have an headphone or something that you're attached to?
Okay.
It is.
No, okay. Well, we might have had an answer to your question, Cookie. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Dan, I didn't hear you.
So I don't know. I don't have an answer. My suspicion is that when somebody is given a tax freeze, it's going to be challenging to take that away from them. But I mean, these things can happen. There would have to be some sort of probably grassroots effort to change it. And so where's that effort coming from? Did you have a follow-up, a second question, Cookie?
It was just that, I hear, just like you guys were saying, that only a portion of that is going to be frozen, the part that's going through the county. I don't think many of the seniors are aware of that. I don't even think they're aware of that, and maybe I'm wrong, but they're going to do another assessment for the upcoming year. And isn't that going to be also added before our taxes are frozen of any kind?
Yeah, I don't know what the schedule is for when the tax freeze takes effect? I thought it was now, but what's
Well,
the
that's
date?
not
Does
what I'm
anyone know?
understanding, and a lot of us are not getting that.
No.
So, I mean, we're in the application process now, but at what
Right.
tax level does it get frozen? Is a good question. And then your other
Thank you
question,
very much.
the other question was, can you appeal it in some way? And I think you can always appeal the valuation on your property. If you think that they've valued it too highly, you can go to the county and say, hey, my property's not worth that much. Therefore, my taxes shouldn't go up as much as you're saying. That's definitely a process. But in terms of just determining when it's frozen, that's whatever the ordinance says. And it's a very short ordinance. It's a 4-page ordinance.
My, my understanding is, just what Susan said, it's frozen you pay now and starting in 2025. My understanding is any new, bond issue or increase that comes up will still be added. But that's one interpretation. That's something would have to check. I will also say that Jackson County did also implement a property tax freeze starting in 2025, and it's still passed. So that's also good news. And we plan on getting, learning from their communications, how they handle this issue. So that's good news for St. Louis County.
Good, thank you. Any other questions regarding the senior fund initiative? We'll move on to the next item, which is the home repair network.
Oh, can I just make one other
Yes.
thing about senior fund, and then, because I have to actually get off early.
Okay,
The senior fund, along with the Missouri Bar Association and Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, we have funded a revamp of the elder law handbook that we have seen since 1972. That book that is just all this information, and we read it and you're not really sure what they're saying sometimes unless you're a lawyer. We have worked with Health Literacy Missouri to revamp the book at a 6th grade reading level. It will have links to all the necessary documents that people would need when they're discussing the different focus areas. And I believe that they will be rolling this out, I think, in early 2025. So again, another example of how a senior levy fund can not only support a local community, but this is statewide. So we're really excited about that. And then last but not least, we were approached by AARP that had data to show that because of the recent requirement, the state legislation that now requires people to have a valid Missouri ID, that there has been a reduction in older African-American men in North County and North City that have been voting. So we have funded a special project with St. Francis Xavier Social Justice Ministry Program and Ashray Foundation. They both are organizations that help people get access to a Missouri ID for voting. And as you know, that an ID is not only important for voting, but it's important if you're applying for housing, for food stamps, for all kinds, as I see Mike Nichol shaking his head, for all kinds of programs, services, and for banking and so forth. So the grant is going to focus. I went down and I spent a day observing the clinic at St. Francis had, and when I went there were people standing in line around the church. And so what we want to do with this funding is to see if to see if we can do special move the clinic to train other social workers on how to get people, how can people implement this program other than having to go to the clinic, and if we can have more of an on the road clinic so that people don't have to wait in line. They don't have to get on a bus. They don't have to get to those sites that we can go to people. So just wanted to let you know that that process that will be a grant that will be starting right away and will run through the end of our fiscal year, which is June of 2025.
Okay.
Jamie, is the
Mhm.
updated handbook going to be online, hard copy, or both?
Both.
Cool.
I see Lillian has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just had one question. When what kind of information campaign will we put together so that we can really educate people in our communities as to these great resources that will be available to older adults? Is someone going to package that, or do we have talking points, and can we hold sessions like at board meetings? We could put it on board meeting agendas or things like that in different municipalities, because I think that you all are so on point with all of the effort that you've put into it. Now we just have to get the messages out, and I'm not getting a sense that a lot of people have been educated about the effort that's been put together by the commission, and most importantly, the benefits of those efforts to the community.
Lily, you're right on point. I think the next step is to start putting a plan together of how to get this information out to people. And that's what I've talked to legal services, at least with the handbook. And we are all ears for your ideas and suggestions on how to get the word out about the work that's going on at College Church and the Oshery Foundation. Again, the only problem is our grant can only cover outreach to the city. Hopefully though, when we're out there talking to people about the service, people then can still hear about the service in the county. So we definitely, want to make sure that people are aware of these two local resources. But as far as that outreach to older adults, at least through the grant through the city senior fund, the focus on the special outreach to older adults is only, unfortunately, for city residents. Another reason why we need more funding in the county.
Yes. Okay.
And
Thank you.
that's a good segue into another reason why we need funding in the county, and that's the home repair network. So I'm now on the advisory council of the Home Repair Network, and we've been having many meetings over the past couple months. We are working on our long-term strategic plan for the organization because it's a fledgling organization. And we've had some speakers come in and kind of instruct us in what's happening in other parts of the country. A woman was brought in last month, Karen Black in Philadelphia, who was instrumental in developing basically a clearinghouse for home repair services in the city of Philadelphia, and it's been very successful. It's been able to get a lot of funding and has been doing great work. And she mapped out a lot of the challenges that we're going to be facing here in St. Louis. The challenges are you've got the people providing home repairs from a not-for-profit or a governmental agency level. They're the providers of the services. You have the funding sources for those providers, which could be federal funding, it could be donations, pledges, etc. You have the workers who are performing the home repairs. You have, and then you have people that need to be involved in training workers, because one of the kind of weak links in this whole process is workforce development. So, and you have agencies that without kind of one large umbrella organization are sometimes working at cross purposes with each other. Sometimes they're trying to serve the same individuals, which is very inefficient. Sometimes they're trying to do slightly different things. And so it's really important to have this umbrella organization where you encourage every organization associated with the home repair to participate, so that everyone knows what everyone else is doing, so that you're not duplicating effort unnecessarily, and you can find gaps in where services are occurring that need to be filled. So I'm just really excited about the organization. We put together, we started to put together a document to help find an executive director that we would like to hire for this organization. But it's, you know, it will be one of the beneficiaries if we can get a senior fund in the county. It will be a great beneficiary because currently it is a beneficiary of the senior fund in the city. And they have a lot of focus in the city, but we need focus in the county as well. So this is really, this senior fund initiative is extremely important to get passed. Liz?
One question I have, are the community colleges and UMSL and those organizations, are they involved with this?
UMSL is involved, and there are individuals, I think at SLU, that are involved as well. A lot of people that are involved actually went to the Brown School, I think, at WashU. But so, you know, remember last year we had a presentation by Todd Swanstrom from UMSL. He's one of the kind of the fathers of this organization. And so he's very involved in it. And I think it was because of him that we got Karen Black to St. Louis to help us learn. Yes, Lisa. No.
Oh, I just was wondering about an update on the remember we talked about trying to fund some sort of needs assessment in the county the way that they did in the city.
Yeah, and I've had a real struggle getting anything. The last conversation I had with Dr. Page was at one of the strategic planning sessions, and my interpretation of that discussion was that any of those discussions have to happen after the election. So we are now after the election, so I can be more of a pest again. But I got nowhere.
Do we know what the price tag is?
Well, the price tag, the study in the city cost $60,000 roughly, and that's the price tag that Todd had been quoting to me, and that's the price tag that we presented to the county council at our committee of the whole meeting. So I suspect it's still in that range. The other place to go for that funding would be Human Services. And I've left some emails and voicemails, and I've gotten no return calls, so I just need to be more of a pest on that. And if anyone else has any connections in that department specifically, because that's also, I had some early success with the workforce development director, and then my success ended, and then I was directed to go to Human Services, both for the funding for the study and for trying to get some sort of a summit for workforce development. So I think that's the place that we need to focus.
Is there any value in us doing a vote and seeing if we could get unanimous support for an official request? I mean, we don't have a process for an official request inside of our organization, but, signing the Older Adult Commission requires all of us to agree on some sort of a vote. Could we think about that for maybe next month and then do an official ask? And second question, is there another place that we should be looking for funding? I don't think this is a high priority in the county, so I'm wondering, is there another, maybe Jamie could answer that, or Lisa?
My personal opinion, before they answer, is that we should be really focusing on the senior tax levy, because that becomes the vehicle to do the things that we want to do.
But isn't this data part of what we need for that? Or, I mean, we're relying on Lisa's data, but this is a housing assessment data, which unless Aging Ahead has already gathered that, we don't really have any data to present as another support piece for the tax.
My fear is that we're not going to get any funding until there is a senior fund.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
What about doing an application to the Missouri Foundation for Health? To their opportunity grant?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that, Jamie. So either that, or maybe we've got a couple of other potentials that grants that we could look at. So and so I guess that was going to be my question is, does it matter that we would be the applicant aging ahead and that and the fiscal agent and all of that? Does it matter that you know, that we would be contracting with this individual to do the work? I mean, does that on behalf of the commission, or?
I think it's, if it's a legitimate study, then it doesn't matter where the money's coming from to pay for the study. You know,
Right.
if we can get the same team that did the study for the city to do one for us, I mean, that study has credibility because of where it's coming from and who's doing it.
So if I can, Jamie, if I can get some details about, you know, what, however that whole application happened, if we don't have to recreate the wheel, if we can, you know, kind of do some cutting and pasting, we could crank something out pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we're also getting ready to release in January our after action report from the Heritage House closing. And I know that that same issue happened, you know, in the county as well. Luckily, though, you had HUD step in right away with Santa Ana. But housing is a issue nationally as well as statewide as locally for older adults, affordable housing. So I think that I think your application would be very timely.
Well, Dan, I think what I understood was originally we were looking, because we have no funding as this advisory commission, and because we haven't felt any true, strong support for initiatives surrounding older adults. One of the thoughts originally when Dan began sort of brainstorming this was that it would be a way for the county to show a commitment to older adults in the absence of having any specific senior funding. So if after X amount of months or year, however long this has been going on, we see that there's no, you know, that this doesn't have any legs, perhaps we should then go someplace else, because I fear that we're just going to miss this opportunity. And I think it's key to continuing to support, to have data that supports the need for the senior fund. And this is just one more piece.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it's been, I started making calls in March to different, you know, departments in the county, and it's now November and I haven't really gotten any success. But where I did get success was with the Home Repair Network, because you know, I've been trying to pitch this idea of a summit with all participants coming together, and well, the Home Repair Network is that summit. And so, you know, all of the participants in that organization would be the participants I would invite to the summit anyway. And they are very interested in having an event that would do exactly what I was suggesting. So, and they have funding. And it's not just with the senior fund, there's significant corporate funding and other sources, and they seem to have the right people to be able to, you know, connect with the money.
Yeah.
Lillian, I'm sorry.
No, thank you for that. I got excited there for a minute when you talked about them already having funding. That leads into my question. Is there, among all of us, do we know of any other organization or entity that is doing an assessment of senior needs for housing or anything else? And I'm wondering then, if we know somebody or know an organization that's already starting to do an assessment, can we develop our questions and ask them, can we piggyback on what they are already funded to do? That way we can get, you know, they'll get their results with the funding they have. We'll get some information for what it is that we want to do as well. Jamie? It may not have to put out, you know, may not have to put out the same level of resource that otherwise we would have to.
Yeah, I think Jamie may have an answer.
Yeah, so Wilma Schmitz will remember this as Lisa Knoll. But back into, and as Carol Rodriguez, as most of you, everybody on this call remembers, back in 2006, we had our very first Missouri Senior Report. And at the time, it was replicated after a kids count report that the Annie Casey Foundation funds and supports throughout the country. We had a grant from Missouri Foundation for Health 3 years ago to update the Missouri Senior Report, and it was transformed from focusing on how many mammograms do women get in St. Louis County to the social determinants of health, which includes housing. The problem with this report is housed through the MU Health Policy Center. The only problem that we have, the data is there. The only problem that we have is sustainability of this. They have numerous indicators broken down at a county level. And if we had simply $50,000 to $60,000 a year, we could sustain this. But instead of trying to find secured funding for this, everyone keeps trying to recreate the same thing, or, and it's like, it's kind of maddening at times that $50,000 or $60,000 is what's keeping us from being able to sustain this year after year. And I try to sell it to the other senior levy boards to say, can we all pitch in? If everybody pitched in by county size, a county that's larger pays more. Maybe the AAAs would pitch in, maybe the state would pitch in. If we all pitched in, a few $1,000s, this could be sustained, but we haven't been able to do that.
Well, I'm going to ask the advisory council members if we can focus on funding this study for the county, because, they do have corporate, sponsors, corporate donors. And I would think that, if it's an organization like, I'll just throw one out there, Home Depot, these corporations have foundations that support things that are in line with, what they're doing. So maybe there's a corporate funding source for this if we can't get anywhere with the county.
And of the municipalities that we have, and all these different municipalities in St. Louis County, since we're focused on that, I'm wondering whether or not, like, for example, community development block grant funding. This is the time right now that they have applications out. All of the municipalities have to respond. And I'm wondering whether or not for those funds that are available for every municipality, whether or not a portion of those could be dedicated to our task. It's just an ask. All they can say is no. But how about if some of them say yes?
I also want to, we did just go through at the state level, as part of the master plan on aging, a really extensive survey, and Lisa's getting that information back. And as part of that, there was, as she mentioned earlier, the drill down on specifically by zip code in St. Louis County. So I think in terms of the needs assessment question, I think we're going to get some good information, and I'd like Lisa to elaborate on that. But I think let's look at that information, because I don't know, when I filled out the survey, I was really impressed with the number of questions that were part of the survey that had to do with housing. So there were questions in that regard. Now, that is an entirely different issue than looking at what was done in the city by Todd in terms of, housing availability, the status of housing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that is something that's very much needed. But in terms of that needs assessment, I'm really looking forward to see what the outcome is from the survey that was done on a statewide basis, and then the drill down in St. Louis County. Lillian, that may provide some of the information that we're looking for. But I do think we still need to go forward with the other research, and it sounds like Lisa may be able to tap into some kind of funding stream to be able to do that, and it could go through Aging Ahead, which I think is very appropriate. So Lisa, can you respond to that, Lisa Knoll?
So in terms of the data that we'll be getting from the contractor, again, that's the St. Louis County specific data that by zip code probably is not going to be available to us until probably January. So we have draft of statewide data at this point, but it's draft only, and we're told not to share because I believe it has to go to the steering committee for the master plan first. And so that's all I know about that. But I do agree that that study, as was done in the city, would be a valuable addition to the data that we get from that needs assessment.
And you feel that there's grant funding you could tap into in order to move that forward through Aging Ahead?
Well, I think there are possibilities. Now, you never know
Yeah.
what an entity is gonna, buy off on or not. And sometimes you think you've got a slam dunk and they just aren't, feeling it. But we have some possibilities, but I think, I don't know what about the timing, Dan, if we should wait, until you get a sense of how that advisory council or committee is going to work in terms of funding, or we can start putting things together now.
Is there anyone from your organization that would like to participate in the HRN?
Yes, I believe that.
I couldn't hear that.
Yes.
Okay, because I think that participation could really aid in the kind of strategizing on how to proceed. And again, we have multiple sources trying to do the same thing a little differently, and it would be much more potent if everybody's speaking the same script. And my area is definitely not grant writing. I don't know anything about that stuff, and that seems to be where a lot of this comes from. And I see a comment from let's see. Jamie wrote, "You have to leave. Lisa will follow. You will follow up with Lisa regarding what you did for the housing study for the city." And then there was an earlier comment, funding for a housing needs assessment for St. Louis County from Susan. Did you want to elaborate on that? Okay. Anything else on the home repair network agenda item? Because I think you, Jamie, I think probably said all she wanted to say regarding the senior fund issue. I think she's gone. So Commission on Disabilities, Sue Orton, I know I have had some conversations with Lisa Clancy's office, and I've gotten copies of the draft ordinance for the
Universal
design ordinance, and there have been many back and forths with the attorneys, as I understand. But the last thing I heard from Craig in Lisa Clancy's office was that they're still puttering around with the ordinance, but that it's definitely made a lot of progress.
Exactly.
Do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm sure that the office shared with you is that they have changed the type of residence that's going to be in the code to include a 2-family, single family, and townhouse. Did you get that too, Dan?
I did.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's good. And again, we're talking about, the next step meeting with the Home Builders Association. Regarding my report, I'm basically going to piggyback on that we had a presentation by Paul Weatherford and share some of the same issues that you all have discussed. One of the other things that came up at our last meeting was discussion on guardianship and community-based services. And this impacts seniors as well as, people who aren't seniors. And Luke Barber had said that there was a recent report from the Department of Justice regarding guardianship in Missouri and, some lawsuits that have been filed. And we had a discussion about that. And one of the things that I noted was that the Governor's Council on Disability had a presentation at one of their meetings regarding the different types of guardianship. in conservatorship and also some supplemental guardianship items, means that were not as restrictive as basic guardianship, which I found very interesting. I still have the presentation if anybody would like to have a copy of that. They also talked about, one of the committee members talked about, basically this was the Olmsted plan, and she thought that maybe the Commission on Disabilities could take a more active role in what was going on. And so we talked about having a discussion for the idea further. So Gabriella and Luke were going to work on that. Let's see. Oh, accessible transportation. You guys talked a lot about transportation, but there really is no accessible transportation available in St. Louis. And there are concerns that people who lived outside of 270 were left out of Metro's transit service area. And so we're going to be checking into that a little bit further and perhaps doing a more detailed report on that. And then Dan, you did the universal design. Let's see what's next.
Oh, I did have a question about the universal design. I know that there's been discussions about having a follow-up meeting with the Home Builders Association, but I hadn't heard any dates or anything.
I have not either. So we're both in the dark.
Okay.
Let's see. Dana, who is our ADA coordinator, she's been very busy. She has been discussing universal design features and wheelchair accessibility for recent projects. And she provides training for employees for reasonable accommodations. And she said they have purchased an electronic material handling cart for use at the record center warehouse and offices that allow boxes to be lifted and transported by employees. The equipment can assist employees who may develop or have a disability. So I thought that was kind of cool. So that's about all we had. As I say, we had Paul Weatherford, and he took up a lot of the meeting time. Anybody have any questions?
No, thank you. The next item on the agenda is commission members share out and commission events. We'll go around. Does anyone have specific share out? No share outs?
Well, here I am. Here I am. At Firestone. Anyway, Wilma Schmitz here. This is Medicare open enrollment and checking the referrals for St. Louis County only. And this is to the Missouri SHIP to talk about what's going on with Medicare. We have over 300 outstanding referrals. We have the largest county. We have the most older adults on Medicare. And with the recent development of Blue Cross and Blue Shield not being accepted at any Mercy facilities, doctors, as of January 1st, 2025, we have been inundated because people want to stay with their doctors and they want to know what plan will give them the biggest bang for their bucks. So it has been overwhelming, and it's interesting, but we have such a large number of people in St. Louis County that need our help. So we're working day and night and weekends. So that's what's happening, but open enrollment ends December 7th. So everybody should notify loved ones, check yourself, because, on top of everything else, now medications are limited to, or the max a person will pay for prescription drugs on Medicare is $2,000 for the entire year, which is great And there's even a payment plan for folks that can't do the $2,000 within the first 3 months or so. However, all of the Part D plans and the Medicare Advantage plans have increased their premiums and have taken some of the no-cost generics are now charging for those. So the health plans are still getting their money, but just from a different pot. So please let folks know that there is help out there. We are doing open enrollment events throughout St. Louis County, not as much in the county as we need to have hosts to help us, but we need help. We need to let people know that there are options, and that is what's going on in the world of Medicare.
Thank you, Wilma. I do have a share out. A couple days ago, I participated in a design charrette at Washington University in a class that many of you are familiar with called When I'm 64. It's a multidisciplinary class for incoming freshmen to help them learn what it's like, what aging is like, and what age discrimination is like, and all of the kind of public policy issues related to aging. And we, as an architect, was invited to participate in and I do this every year. They pick a specific property that's owned by Washington University, and they say that we would like to see some sort of community facility for older adults on this site, and do whatever you want. And so we break up into different groups with different architects, and the students are educated in World Health Organization, age-friendly cities documentation. So the stuff that we use as the foundation of what this commission does is what these students were given to study. So they were given an age-friendly checklist, they were given the principles of universal design, and they were given some other documentation, and then they were told, what would you put on this site to help older adults? And it was a very exciting class, and I always like to hear from 18-year-olds and what their ideas are. That's all I have. Anybody else? When it comes to next month's meetings, I would love to hear, if there are specific pursuits that we didn't get on this agenda. I mean, now's the time during commission share out to address those, but if you have a specific agenda item, please send it to me at least a week before this meeting so that I can make sure that it's on the agenda. And are there any other additional comments? Yes, Lisa.
In response to your question for next month, I really appreciated Paul Weatherford's presentation last month. I'm wondering if we could, since you sit on the county strategic plan, I wonder, could we sort of review the different departments like we did back in 2016, looking at county departments and number one, either identifying someone who could speak to us, number two, identifying areas where we should be more educated as an older adult commission, department by department. So we've talked to transportation and about transportation, but parks and recs. And so are there key departments that we should sort of have conversations around so that we might better focus in 2025 on either speakers or communications?
Great idea.
Good.
If I could get somebody at Human Services to return my call, that would be a good one. Any other Any other share outs or additional comments? We are scheduled to have our next meeting on December the 5th at 9 a.m. Is there any desire? I don't think it states whether it's going to be a virtual meeting or face-to-face meeting. Are there any? Does anyone have an opinion on that? We okay with continuing to meet virtually? Okay. Any other agenda items we feel like we need to, that we didn't address, that we should address? I think might have one. I can't hear her though.
I know, I was on mute, sorry. My dog has been acting up. Could we on our next agenda make sure to do an update on, I know what Liz has worked on in terms of both connectivity and the committee she is serving on, as well as adult, what is going on with kind of adult protective services and elder abuse, financial elder abuse. I'm struggling for what I'm seeking. But I think we haven't had an update in a while on those. So maybe if that could be an agenda item as well, just to give us an update.
Have there been meetings, Liz?
You know, I haven't been able to attend any. Lisa, I don't know, what have we been doing on that? It's kind of off my radar at the moment.
Oh, for the financial exploitation, we have not had meetings. That group unfortunately is having trouble.
And I think with Wesley Bell leaving prosecuting attorney's office, that there's not much we can do on that front right now. So I think everything's
no one else is taking kind of the lead on that with his absence.
We've got Tracy in that office, who we're in touch with. So I think right now it's just on hold.
So maybe it would be more appropriate, Liz, to wait until the first of the year to bring that up and address it. It does also bring up, and I think we had some dialogue prior to the meeting starting as well, about newly elected members of the council and making sure that, we're aware of those new members and reaching out to those new members with a welcome and let them know who we are.
So I see two hands. Charlene Hughes.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to first take some time to introduce myself. My name is Charlene Hughes. I am the new division manager for the Office of Social and Community Services. So I am Susan's teammate when it comes to our core program. I'm glad to be here. Give me a little time, a little grace, what's going on, what we're doing, so that I can be a productive part. Secondly, Mr. Rosenthal, you made the statement, if you could get somebody from Human Services to return your phone call, and I want to know what you're talking about so we can get that phone call returned.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is an effort to have some coordinated meeting with Workforce Development and Human Services to address the issue of training small contractors for home repair. We have there's a huge issue related to the need for home repairs, and there are many not-for-profits that provide those services, but one of the weak links in the chain of those services is finding small contractors that are, kind of pre-approved to perform those repairs. So what this results in is a very long waiting list for home repairs from the providers who are funded, and those services can't get to the community because there aren't enough small contractors. So
Okay.
I've spoken with Greg Laposa about this a number of times, and I need to have somebody at Human Services that is an advocate for this as well.
Well, I am that person. I just sent you my email address.
Thank you very much.
So if you could please put all of that in an email. And it's ironic because I spoke with one of my employees yesterday who was speaking about the same thing. So I'm kind of aware of it, but I appreciate you bringing that up even more. But a detailed email would be
Thank you.
fantastic. And that way I can add that to my gazillion things to do. But
Well,
make
then
sure
I'm going
that
to
I
take
put some
advantage
attention
and
on it.
invite you to one of our Home Repair Network meetings as well. Maybe
Please do.
someone can
Please do.
attend. Thank you. That's wonderful.
you.
Appreciate that. Wilma. I saw your hands up. I think you might have stepped away.
So Dan, she did put in the text that she had to leave. She was at Firestone and she was leaving. So I believe she's no longer part of the meeting.
Okay. If we've attended to all the agenda items, I'd suggest that we adjourn the meeting.
So Dan, you need a motion and then a second and then proceed to.
So would anyone like to make that
Second.
motion? Has the motion been made? to
I
adjourn
so
the meeting?
moved that we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second.
Any seconds? Yeah. Can I second? I don't think I can.
Yes, you can, Dan.
Yeah,
You can
or I
second any
second.
motion.
All right. All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
All opposed? Nobody's ever opposed to adjournment. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
We'll see you next month.